hand, we have guys that devoted everything to fight the Legion. They literally ripped out their own eyes to see demons better, and they never really planned to go back to normal life. Well, the Legion is no more, and their purpose was fulfilled years ago. On the other hand, we have Dead Knights raised by the Lich King, who no longer exists, who was destroyed, and they can no longer be created. They're undead, most if not all were raised against their will, and their existence in itself is miserable. Unlike all the other available classes, these two were created for a specific purpose that has long been fulfilled. So, can these guys really be created again? What is their current point, and are they just going to become a relic of a bygone era, and will they eventually just go extinct? So before we get into the video, right now is the best time to get your own Rage wallet or the Rage key case, as they're running up to 40% off discount with the Father's Day coming, and you have time until June 10th. Make sure to click my link, so rage.com/Doron, and you can get the Rage wallet, you can get the key case. If you get both, you get a great discount, and this really makes for an excellent wallet. I've been using it for years. You can fit up to 12 cards, you can put cash on the side, and it really is just perfect. So make sure to check out rage.com/Doron. So, you may be asking, I mean, if you go by this logic, what really is the point of any class in the game? What is the point of a warrior? What is the point of a mage? However, Death Knights and Demon Hunters are really unlike any other class currently in the game, as in they were built, created for a purpose that is no longer a thing. The thing about other classes is that usually there is something you choose and realistically you can transition into. If you're a warrior, you can trade to become a monk, or you can trade to become a paladin. We have literally seen these actual transitions. For example, all the races that are not Pandaren were something else before they learned to be monks. However, in the case of DKs and Demon Hunters, it's a completely different scenario. In the case of Death Knights, no one really chose to become a Death Knight, or mostly no one, and in fact almost all of them were raised against their will, and they were something else in life. If we discount the first generation Death Knights, their original purpose was to serve the Lich King, and the newer ones were there to save Azeroth, but there is no longer a Lich King or a Scourge, or the Ice Crown Citadel for that matter, as a thing that is relevant. In the case of Demon Hunters, it is even more different. I'd say for all the Demon Hunters, it was a choice, but it's not like, you know, they were just choosing like what school to go to. This was more like, these demons took everything from me, so I'm going to just go the nuclear route to get back at them. If you guys read the novel, you know that these dudes went through an insane ritual, and insane is putting it lightly. They literally blinded themselves because they plucked out their own eyes for the sole purpose of seeing demons better. Plus, they literally devoured a demon and became demons themselves. So while they were something else back in the day, it's not like you can really transition from a demon hunter into like a priest or a paladin. Theoretically, I guess it could be possible, but you can never actually seen it happen. You know, maybe if Illidan accepted the light. So the real question is, can these two classes still even be created? What is the purpose of the ones that are still around, and are they eventually just going to go extinct? Well, that is a bit of a deeper question, so let's start off with the Dead Knights. The thing about Dead Knights is that there are multiple generations of them, although what is relevant to us is the third and the fourth generation, as those are our playable characters. The thing to keep in mind about Dead Knights is that they're really not nice people. We may have seen them save Azeroth, do heroic things, but these guys are not like the dark paladin heroes. In fact, they are really miserable beings raised against their will. We have seen their existence described as torture. They're constantly unhappy, they're decaying, they don't really feel pain, their emotions completely changed, as well as their mind. It is pretty much as you would expect from someone that was raised into undeath. As I said, the playable characters have two generations, and there is a pretty stark difference between the two that a lot of people don't really know of. The original ones were raised by Artis as killing machines with very malicious intent. They were his personal army. He imbued inherent sadism in them, meaning they have to kill something all the time, so he never really intended them to be the saviors of Azeroth or to have any sort of normal lives. The second generation, on the other hand, explains why all the allied races are able to become Death Knights. They were raised quite recently by Volvar with free will in order to defend Azeroth, so while it was still a dark process, it wasn't a malicious one that completely messed him up. Now, after this, Volvar was no longer a Lich King, the crown was shattered, the Scourge broke loose, we got the entire Shadowlands thing, so as far as we know, no Death Knights have been created since, and we no longer have a way for them to be created. While theoretically, a powerful necromancer can raise new ones, we haven't really seen it happen, and it wouldn't really be the same thing. This would be more akin to creating just a regular Forsaken. So while the the current Death Knights look the same, they were not created in the same way, and they do not function in the same way. However, what they do have in common is a relatively similar miserable existence and no longer having a Lich King or a way to bolster their numbers. Now, in regards to the purpose, this is a bit different than Demon Hunters, is once the Ebon Blade broke free all those years back, they never really had a strict purpose. The new ones were raised to defend Azeroth, and that is of course constantly relevant, it is constantly needed. So purpose-wise, it's not pointless, but the main issue is that they may eventually just go extinct. As I previously mentioned, they no longer really have a way to regenerate their numbers, and seeing that all of them are fighters, I mean they're quite literally called knights, it's only a matter of time before their entire numbers get culled. I could see a way for them to discover something in the Icecrown Citadel to regenerate, but now the question is, why would they willingly subject someone to something like this when there are so many other ways to fight? The only ethical thing would be to raise themselves once again. However, by the way things are set up right now, I'd say they really are on a course to eventually just go extinct, and I don't see them being relevant again with the entire Lich King storyline being finished. Next down the line we have the Demon Hunters that are really a completely different scenario, but they're in a very similar predicament. The thing about Demon Hunters is that they were literally built for one single purpose. They weren't built as warriors, as mages, they're quite literally the opposite of versatile. They pretty much analyzed what are the strengths of demons, and this class was created just to counter demons in every single way possible. The weapons they use is perfect against massive demons, they're fast to catch up with demons, they ripped out their eyes to see them better, to see them through walls, they can sense demon energy. Of course, that is not to say that all these attributes can't obviously be used for other things. I mean, it's always good to be strong, but this is definitely not a healthy or a sustainable class in any way, shape, or form. If you go through the lore, the ritual is essentially an act of desperation, and most people actually died instead of transcending into Demon Hunters, so this is a super dangerous ritual. So the entire mindset back then was that they will do whatever it takes. There was no plan to reintegrate into society, to go back to life. It's kinda, you know, how to go back to your farm when you've blocked out your eyes to see demons better in the dark. And the unfortunate thing is the demons were defeated, the Burning Legion was defeated years ago. In fact, their purpose was fulfilled 3 expansions back. So the question really is, what are they up to now, and can they still be created? Well, as far as we know, no, they can't. Illidan is no longer around, who was in charge, and there really is no point in creating further Demon Hunters. In regards to what they're up to now, Blizzard told us that they're still hunting lone demons, as demons are still a thing, they're just no longer Sargeras' Legion. However, their main purpose has been fulfilled. We have seen the Demon Hunters on the Dragon Isles, but there was nothing that was said about them, or if they can somehow revert this process. Of course, much like the Death Knights, their purpose right now is to defend Azeroth, but realistically, when you think about it, I really don't see how their daily life actually functions. Now, my speculation is that we may find a way to add a new spec to them, which could make Demon Hunters playable for other races. We know Zera attempted to convert Illidan into the Light, so what if this is a possibility and we could get like Light or Void Demon Hunters? So just like how they imbue themselves with Fel, they could do the same with certain types, so they can become Void Hunters, and we could get these types of Void Hunters, Void Demon Hunters. However, with the way things are currently set up at the moment, both Demon Hunters and Death Knights are really set up for extinction, and it is only a matter of time before they fade into irrelevancy, unless Blizzard does something to revive them. Thank you for watching. Check out the leaked Yasharaj expansion by clicking on the screen, and check out Doronsmovies Academy for videos on real-world history. See you next time!